Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the LEAD Center's Promoting Economic Advancement webinar series, Integrating Employment and Financial Capability Services, New Pathways to Economic Stability. My name is Elizabeth Jennings. I'm going to be your facilitator today. I'm also the Assistant Project Director of the LEAD Center, and I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you all today. We have several other speakers on our webinar today. Michael Morris, the Executive Director of National Disability Institute, Chris Button, the Supervisory Policy Advisor for Workforce System Policy at the U.S. Department of Labor, Office of Disability Employment Policy. And from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, we have Chris Rosenthal, Assistant Director of Financial Empowerment, and Desmond Brown, Policy Analyst. Thank you to all our speakers for being with us today. We appreciate your time. For those of you who haven't joined us before, the National Center on Leadership for the Employment and Economic Advancement of People with Disabilities, called the LEAD Center, is a collaborative of disability, workforce, and economic empowerment organizations led by National Disability Institute with funding from the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy. I'd now like to take a moment to invite Chris Button with ODEP to offer a welcome.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and everyone there with our partners at NDI and also our partners at Community Financial Protection Bureau. We are really excited about this webinar today, and on behalf of ODEP, I want to welcome everyone to the dialogue. For those of you who don't know, ODEP, or the Office of Disability Employment Policy, is an office at the Department of Labor, and we are charged with elevating employment for youth and adults with disabilities government-wide and across the nation. We learned very quickly that partnership is essential, and we reached out and looked for partners that could help us move the needle, if you will, around disability employment. And we were really delighted when CFPB actually approached us and said, let's talk about asset development, let's talk about building financial capability, because we believe, we understand that this is really just a cutting edge area of importance where disability and employment is concerned, and we're assisting people with disabilities to be able to really participate in their communities and to advance economically. A lot of times we get questions, well, what do you mean by asset development? What do you mean by building financial capability? And what is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and why are you partnering? And I think that today's webinar will really help let people know about kind of the nexus of these areas and why we are important partners for each other. And we're just really very, very excited to be able to welcome everyone and to look forward to the presentations today as we try to move forward with this important topic. And so, Elizabeth, thank you very much. I really look forward to the webinar.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'd now like to invite my colleague, Nakia Matthews, to offer a few housekeeping tips.
Good afternoon, everyone. The audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through your computer. Please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel, which you see below. And if you accidentally close this panel, or if your sound stops or becomes unintelligible, you can reopen this panel by going to the top menu item, Communicate, Join Audio Broadcast. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer, or you prefer to listen by phone, you can dial the number you see here and the meeting code. You do not need to enter an attendee ID. Real-time captioning is provided during this webinar. The captions can be found in the Media Viewer panel, which you will see in the lower right-hand corner of the webinar platform. If you'd like to make the Media Viewer panel larger, you can minimize some of the other panels like Q&A, chat, or participants. And conversely, if you do not need the captions, you can minimize the Media Viewer panel. We will have a Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. Please use the chat box or the Q&A box to send any questions that you may have during the course of the webinar to either me, Nakia Matthews, or to Elizabeth Jennings, and we will direct those questions accordingly at the end of the webinar. If you are listening by phone only and not logged into the web portion, you may also submit questions by emailing them directly to Elizabeth at ejennings@ndi-inc.org. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and that the materials and archive will be placed on the Lead Center website at the URL you see below. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, you may use the chat box to send me, Nakia Matthews, a message, or you may email me directly at nmatthews@ndi-inc.org.
Thank you, Nakia. The mission of the LEAD Center is to advance sustainable, individual, and systems-level change that results in improved, competitive, integrated employment and economic self-sufficiency outcomes for individuals across the spectrum of disability. Today, we'd like to talk to you about framing the issue of why we choose to talk about asset development in the context of individuals with disabilities, the growing partnership between the Department of Labor, Office of Disability Employment Policy, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB's background, financial capability, and financial empowerment. We're going to talk about transaction accounts and credit, tools, research, and collaboration for you to use in your work, and how you can connect with CFPB. We're also going to offer ample time for questions, so please, as Nakia directed, submit your questions into the Q&A box, and we will address them during the question and answer period. As a result of today's webinar, we believe you will have a better understanding of the importance of financial capability and financial empowerment for individuals with disabilities, the CFPB's mission, vision, and current efforts, the basics of transaction accounts and credit and how to share these important concepts with those you serve, connecting with the CFPB and accessing available tools and resources, and the importance of this DOL-ODEP and CFPB partnership. I'd now like to invite Michael Moritz, Executive Director of the National Disability Institute, to share more on this important topic.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I really, before turning to my colleagues at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, want to further frame out this set of issues a little bit further. First, it's really thinking about, and I think all of us, whether we're a professional working in the workforce development system or a Center for Independent Living or are a person with a disability, a person seeking work, or a person already in the workplace, there is one very well-known fact which has been studied and documented over and over again, and that is that people with disabilities live in poverty at a rate twice that of their non-disabled peers. According to the latest statistics, about 27.8% compared to about 12.4%. We also know that many people with disabilities, whether coming up through the education system and even who have gone on to higher education, have never really had experience with managing a budget, have had no real training in terms of financial education or literacy. Many individuals with disabilities of working age, youth and working age adults, have never opened a savings or checking account, have no credit score, and often find out when they seek funding, perhaps for assistive technology or a person who's looking for transportation and modifying a van for their purposes or other purchases of technology, begin to realize how important credit is, how important it is to understand this whole set of issues now framed out by the phrasing financial capability. A little bit further in terms of the challenges by the numbers. Approximately half of people with disabilities, 48%, report a personal income of less than $15,000 a year. And on the flip side of that, only 7% are reporting making more than $50,000. So we're talking about predominantly people with disabilities at the lowest or low rung of the economic ladder. 3 in 5 people with disabilities, approximately 58%, in multiple surveys have said that they're struggling to get by, getting further and further into debt each month, living paycheck to paycheck, and have these struggles typically almost again about twice that of people without disabilities. Just over 1/3, 77% of people with disabilities report they are not living paycheck to paycheck or have few financial worries. So that's about 1/3, a little over 1/3. But that compares to 62% of people without disabilities. So again, this discrepancy for certainly working age adults with disabilities. In terms of financial capability, we know that 42% of all Americans report having more debt than they would like. 60%, and this is again across the board, people of working age do not have a rainy day fund, do not have funds set aside for any type of emergency, whether their car would break down and have a new repair bill, or medical costs that weren't anticipated. 1/3 of America's youth report having school loans that they're afraid they cannot pay. And the amount of debt in this country for student loans has grown to historic record highs. 78% of low-income workers report having an average of 7.5 credit cards, and 22% report having 15 to 22 credit cards. But what does that mean? What it means really is they are not having much success in borrowing money more traditional ways from banks or financial institutions, and so they're getting into this spiral of using credit cards as the only means to sort of make ends meet. 50% of all Americans report credit scores below 600, which is going to affect the terms and conditions of any loan and even affect their ability to get any loan at all. One or two more kind of statistics in terms of impact of income disparity. What the studies are beginning to show us, some supported now by CFPB and some supported by some of the research being done across the country, low-income individuals have less financial knowledge and ability, are achieving fewer financial goals, and have less access to financial services and products than individuals with higher incomes. We know that there is a shortage often, depending on where you live, particularly in lower economic areas and neighborhoods in communities across the country. There are less likely to be a choice of financial institutions. We know that identifying, utilizing strategies to equip individuals with knowledge and access they need regarding financial capability becomes a critical first step to changing financial behavior and improving outcomes. And really the nexus, the connection I think that brings us all together today is people looking for a job. These issues aren't only about, well, bother me after I find that job. These are issues that come into play in your own planning, in your own thinking, in your own actions in terms of, as we learn, almost 50% of employers today, according to a study by the Society of Human Resource Managers, SHRM, almost 50% of employers are today using credit scores as a new vetting process, a new way of determining, do I want to hire this individual? And people with lower credit scores are not getting hired. So what we have today is this interface, this interconnection, potential bridge between what the workforce investment system is doing and helping people both with skills training and finding jobs that are not just any job, but lead to meaningful wages and potential career advancement, and this array of issues and challenges around financial capability, building an understanding of money management, building more positive financial behaviors. Savings and investment and tax advice improve positive behavior and reduce negative behavior for low-income earners. Study after study are showing us this today. The best time to reach an individual and teach them about their money is at the point and time when it's needed. So not so much just after you're in a job, but for people who are also looking for work, for people who are approaching the idea that they may need a loan for technology or transportation that's going to take them into the workplace, for ways that would help them in terms of adding to their skills development and improve their opportunities in terms of a job search. So I think what I hope I've left you with is there is a new context today, probably more urgent than ever before in the past. Post-2008, with the enormous challenges of the economy, and certainly we're still all challenged in bringing the economic recovery to all Americans, including people with disabilities. What we have is an extraordinary opportunity to build a bridge, to build an alliance between the workforce investment system, between the disability community, and those many organizations, both in terms of at the federal agency level, but then at the community level and at the state level. Government, financial institutions, financial empowerment centers, and new resources coming into play. And what I hope this webinar provides for all of us is an opportunity to begin to see these connections and to begin to build pathways towards advancing individual and personal better economic futures for people with disabilities. So let me turn it now back to Rebecca Salon or Elizabeth, who are going to introduce our two speakers from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Thank you so much, Michael. Greatly appreciate your thoughts. And now it's now my pleasure to welcome Cliff Rosenthal. Cliff has been working with NDI and ODEP for over a decade. He's very committed to the work to build economic stability for consumers with disabilities. He, along with Desmond Brown, a program specialist of financial empowerment, consumer education, and engagement at CFPB, will be leading us through the rest of the webinar. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Good afternoon. This is Cliff Rosenthal. I'm with my colleague Desmond Brown. We are at the Office of Financial Empowerment at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau here in Washington, D.C. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what this new agency is, what we mean when we talk about financial capability and financial empowerment, and what some of the specific aspects of this are, and some of the tools that we can use and help supply you with to enable you to manage this more effectively. So we've got a lot of words here. Let me first say that I really appreciate the excellent framing of the issue that Michael Morris has done. And by way of a personal note on it, it's been my privilege to work with NDI and with ODEP for about a decade at the, prior to joining the CFPB, which is a new agency, back in 2012. In general, what we're trying to do is to create a level playing field for financial services. That the financial marketplace has been arrayed with depository institutions like banks and credit unions that you may be familiar with. but also many, many other institutions that provided financial service. So what we are unique in American history is that we have the ability to regulate and supervise both the familiar banks and credit unions, but all the other sorts of financial institutions and others such as consumer reporting agencies as well. Quite a new thing, really. We will be successful in the end if we do achieve a level playing field, one that's transparent. What do we mean by that? We mean that consumers can see what the risks and prices are of the various financial products that they are confronted with, and that no one can build a financial institution or financial product provider that's based on deception or abusive practices. And we want to develop a system that works for the American consumers in general as a whole. So we've got a variety of tools that we can use. We have an extensive research and markets and regulation department. We believe that any regulation that we develop has to be based in a sound understanding of what's actually happening in the marketplace. So we have economists and lawyers by the score, as a matter of fact, who are trying to develop regulations in the most appropriate and compelling way. We have a Department of Supervision, Enforcement, and Fair Lending to make sure that the various providers out there are playing by the rules, and if they're not, to take actions to bring them into compliance. Let me talk about our own division here, consumer education and engagement. A big part of our work is financial education. A big part is the digital interface, if you will, that we call consumer engagement. And what's unique about this agency and this office is that there are special population offices that were specified in the Dodd-Frank law that got this bureau established in 2010. One deals specifically with service members, one deals with older Americans, another with students, and then there's our own particular office, the Office of Financial Empowerment, which specifically deals with the issues faced by low-income and other economically vulnerable consumers. This includes people below the poverty level, people who are above the poverty level but still have less than twice the poverty income. That includes many others as well, people who are underbanked, who may not have a bank account, or may not use the bank account for or credit union account for their critical functions like getting a loan. That may have to go to a payday lender as well. If we take a look at all these populations together, we think that there may be as many as 100 million people who are economically vulnerable in this country. So it's a big job for us. So what is our engagement with the disability community? This is a really important target audience for us, and it's important to us personally in this office. One of the most significant early actions that we took was working with the Department of Labor and specifically ODEP. So last August, we signed a memorandum of agreement with the Office of Disability Employment Policy to begin to work systematically with ODEP to develop programs and policies that can specifically address the needs of people with disabilities, those who are in the workforce, those who hope to be in the workforce as well. And we followed that up with a series of special meetings that focus on these issues and roundtables as well. What is this concept of financial capability that I think Michael has done an excellent job of introducing you to? This is the definition that's rather emerged between federal agencies and nonprofits. It's the capacity that calls into account the knowledge, skills, and access to financial products that help people manage their financial resources effectively. Is it financial education? Well, sure. Financial education or financial literacy, as it's called, enter into that picture. But it goes beyond that, because in the end, what we're trying to achieve is action, that people have the skills and capability they need, but they also have the choices in the marketplace, And when they need help, which most of us do at one time or another, they know where to get help in order to connect with these services. We have come to see through our work that frontline staff, such as many of you on the phone, are absolutely crucial. I talked about 100 million people that, that could benefit from, hopefully, the services that we can provide. We can't do that individually. We can't establish the kind of relationship, the one-to-one relationship that so many frontline staff in social service and empowerment organizations and employment organizations have with individuals. So a lot of our work has been directed toward helping the helpers, if you will, to do their work more effectively, because the stakes are very high and the benefits are very high as well. Case managers, frontline staff have relationships based on trust. They play such a critical role in delivering information in the way that people can actually use that. And again, I will stress that. This is action-oriented, information that you can use. We all could use a higher level of financial education in general, but we need information that we can act on and the connections and the referrals that make this possible. It's a complicated landscape in terms of access. There are many, many types of financial products. There are places that offer them. You don't generally think of your grocery store as a financial services institution, but if you go to one of those displays, I guess they call them J-hooks, you'll see these prepaid cards there. You might be able to get money orders and so forth. There are check cashers and there are payday lenders. There are online companies that will help transfer money, pay bills, and so forth. There are mortgage companies that are not just simply sitting in your local neighborhood bank, but work completely online. There are automobile dealers that become access to loans. These many, many providers make for a complicated landscape. Now, furthermore, of course, how are you going to choose among these? Each of these may have their benefits and risks. So this chart is one way we think about trying to guide people in the right direction, whether they're looking for an institution like a bank or a credit union, where they're trying to view whether debit cards, prepaid cards, are the best result for them, the best channel for them, or probably the most dangerous course for a lot of people is just keeping it in a secret place in your home. It may be cheap to do it there. You may not have service fees and so forth. It might be easy for you to put your hands on it. But unfortunately, many people have seen the downside of it, whether they have a fire in the house or a robbery and so forth. So the whole matter of choosing the right access channel or route is a complicated one. So I'd like to turn it over now to my colleague, Desmond Brown.
Thank you, Cliff. As Cliff mentioned, it's a very complicated landscape for consumers out there who are trying to figure out not only where to put their money, but also the types of products that they should use in their to meet their financial service needs. Before I go into this specific chart here, I want to take a step back to get a little bit more granular in some of the things that Michael mentioned before in trying to frame up this conversation. We are focusing on 5 very important areas of work that we're trying to help low-income consumers get a better handle on. The first is access to financial services, and we will talk a little bit more specifically about that. The second is helping consumers to understand the importance of building credit, how to build credit, and why credit plays such an important role in not only employment, but also buying a home, buying a car, getting an apartment, and so on. Debt management obviously plays an important role in how you are able to manage your day-to-day finances. And as a result of managing your debt and managing how much money you have coming in and how much is going out, you will have some resources left over to save if you're able to actively manage your finance as well. The last thing that we're trying to really drive home to consumers is this concept of financial protection. What does that mean? And we are here to help consumers really get a hold on all of their rights and understand their rights so that they're less likely to be taken advantage of. I am going to focus on two very specific things today, just on access and on credit. And we're going to give you a couple opportunities to make this a little bit more interactive and a little bit more fun. So as this chart here is showing, consumers have a lot of options out there when they buy financial service products. And how they decide and what they decide is one of the things that they must take into consideration when they are going to make a decision. Next slide, please. So here's a question, and we don't have the capacity for you to vote, but if you could take out a pen and start writing down the answers to these questions over the next few minutes, we will see and we will test the financial knowledge for everyone on the phone and on the website today. The first question is, what is more expensive for a consumer using a prepaid card or a traditional checking account? So if you just want to go ahead and jot down your answer to that question, I'll give you 10 seconds to write down the answer to that question before we move on to reveal the answer to this. Okay. All right. So again, like everything else, it depends. What we're trying to do is to make more consumers financially capable, or as it says here, savvy. This chart was taken from some research that was done by Pew Charitable Trust. And as you can see, for a financially capable consumer, the difference between a prepaid card for a financially capable or a savvy consumer and someone who's inexperienced is very dramatic. It's about 3 times as much. I'm sure that many of you wrote down that a prepaid card was more expensive than a traditional checking account. That was my initial reaction when I saw this question. But as you can see, for a savvy consumer or a financially capable consumer versus an inexperienced consumer, a checking account can be very expensive. At the Bureau, we are not really pushing one product or one service over another. What we are trying to do is to focus on ways to get consumers to really understand what their needs are and how to identify the right product to meet those needs. And so we are aggressively trying to make the consumer more knowledgeable, provides opportunities for them to build that knowledge and opportunities for them to put that knowledge to practice so that they could become more savvy and don't spend $94 when you can spend $3.99. Next. So here's quiz number 2. And again, I'm going to ask you to take your pencil or pen and jot down the answer to this question. Low credit score may result in the following things: higher deposits for utilities, inability to rent an apartment, higher rates of insurance, a denial of loans and credit cards, difficulty getting a job. This is very important to this population, or all of the above or none of the above. Please make your selection and I will give you the answer shortly. All right, so here the answer is obviously all of the above. We wanted to also just provide a quick review of some of the things that individuals on the phone and or the customers that they serve could think about in helping someone to either improve or repair their credit score. You know, as Michael mentioned, almost 50% of employers are now looking at credit scores as a way to determine, or as a contributing factor to employment. So this is a very important thing to get a better understanding of, help consumers or customers know where to turn to help repair their credit. I think the first thing, though, is to encourage individuals to really know what's on their credit report and to take the action to review their credit report so they can take the steps necessary to make the repairs if there are repairs necessary. Many times it's an error, and if you have the error removed, it will dramatically improve your credit score. So I think that's one of the things that we're encouraging our partners to do. Many times people are afraid to pull their credit report just because they are uncomfortable about finding out what's on it. But if they don't pull it, they can't really know if there's an error that they can easily fix. So obviously paying down old debt, using credit cards and other credit building products as a way to improve your credit score. But at the first step, I think what we are strongly encouraging people to do is to pull and learn what's on there. Thank you. So quickly now, I'm going to talk about some of the additional tools and resources that we have at the Bureau that can help both consumers and organizations that are working with consumers to do some of the things that we just mentioned.
So I hope after hearing the list that Desmond just read to you, you'll have some optimism from it. There are actually many ways that people can improve their credit score and their overall financial stability. So what, in simplest terms, we're here at the Bureau to help. And we've tried to develop approaches and resources and tools that can help you and others do their jobs. So again, as we were thinking about our work and thinking about this population of 100 million people who are dealing with a complicated financial marketplace, we tried to narrow down our strategies. The first one was to identify what some of the most promising products, services and delivery channels are. So it's sort of a research task. The second was to systematically collaborate with the major federal agencies that touch the lives of low-income and other economically vulnerable people. And the Department of Labor is obviously one of the foremost ones for us. Health and Human Services is another. But we also work closely with financial regulators, the Department of Education, and other institutions. And finally, to repeat earlier, we focus on intermediaries, the frontline workers, the social service agencies, the community organizations, sometimes the financial institutions, legal services and legal aid, and local government that touch the lives of people every day. So we're very excited about a key tool that we've developed to train frontline workers. It's our case manager training, and it began from our conversations with social service agencies, where we basically did a scan of what was out there toward the goal of developing a toolkit and training that they could use. Again, this is not sort of a financial education curriculum that you come to X number of classes and you get a certificate at the end. Rather, it's a toolkit that frontline workers can use, and it addresses areas like goal setting, financial goal setting, savings, budgeting your cash flow, building good credit and keeping it, managing your debt, choosing financial services, and the kind of resources that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau can provide you with. One of our other specific activities, and some of you may be familiar with this, in the area of asset building is tax time, which many of you are probably engaged in preparing your taxes right now. We are as well. For people who have earned income, the Earned Income Tax Credit may be the largest single infusion of cash that they get during the year. And one of our jobs and one of our areas of activity is promoting wealth building at tax time. So we're piloting an approach in 13 locales around the country, hope to expand that next year. And we're trying to use sort of state-of-the-art strategies that build on behavioral science, such as it may be beneficial for you when you go to the tax preparation site to have been reminded to bring certain things with you, such as your bank account or credit union account number if you have to have one. It may promote savings, and we're trying to embody techniques like that. Another important resource is Ask CFPB. And, you know, if you take away one website or one name from this, consumerfinance.gov is the one. That's the gateway to all of the resources and information that we have. So Ask CFPB is a fabulous resource. It basically includes approximately 1,000 questions and very plain language answers about many aspects of financial products and financial services. And believe me that, you know, each of us would benefit from checking that out. I know I've done it myself in terms of some of the terms used in the mortgage process and so forth. It's a very helpful basic report. What kind of questions do people ask? Well, they very frequently ask about credit reports and credit scores, probably more than almost any other product. And these are some of the questions that people are asking. Where can you get your credit score? How can you dispute an error when you see it? Are there laws that can limit how debt collectors deal with you? And what about getting free credit reports, which don't necessarily include the scores? So we highly recommend that. It's free. It's very readily accessible to folks. If you have an issue with a financial service provider, things are not going the way they should, we do have a very highly developed complaint line, consumerfinance.gov/complaint. And it has received, in our approximately 3 years of existence, approximately 300,000 inquiries or requests for help from consumers. We also have an array of publications that are available for free, and the website is shown up there. So there are many ways in which we try to engage with you. In terms of Ask CFPB, in terms of any complaints, you can simply tell your story, whether it's positive or negative, about your experience with financial providers. For those of you who are on Twitter and Facebook, you can find us there. I'm sorry that I can't personally tell you how to do that, since I'm a little backward myself. And you can weigh in on rulemakings. So, in general, what are we looking for in terms of our partnership? We want to hear from you as to your suggestions how we and ODEP can work together, whether we can have joint listening sessions, whether we can target training and webinars on various particular topics, and areas of policy that you think that we could be engaged in as well.
So we'll turn it back over to the lead center, and then we'll be happy to take questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Cliff and Desmond. I think that was just wonderful. I want to offer this back to Chris Button over at ODEP so that she can talk a little bit more about the partnership between ODEP and CFPB.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And thank you so much to Cliff and Desmond for that very, very informative and helpful overview of the exciting ways that the Bureau is helping people across the nation, and certainly has this incredible potential to be helping youth and adults with disabilities as they attempt to be able to negotiate the world of managing and gaining increasing skill in their own economic advancement and financial stability. And as Cliff did say, each of us can benefit from reviewing some of the materials that they have been able to put in their toolkit. As we mentioned earlier, ODEP and CFPB have entered into a partnership. We are both very committed as agencies and individuals to help workers, including those with disabilities, to be able to really participate in the American dream. Not to sound trite, but you need to be able to participate in life, and that a lot of times means that you need to be able to have the resources to do it. You need to have a job to be able to gain the resources. And all of these things need to fit together in a way to be able to allow you and assist you in really full appreciation of what our nation has to offer. As we work together to implement our partnership, we're doing a number of things. First of all, we're looking at touch points. Where are places where we can reach youth and adults with disabilities to be able to connect them to information such as the Bureau is offering, to information about asset building, about advancing their own economic stability. And employment is obviously one of those touch points. As people enter an American Job Center, for example, implemented through the Workforce Investment Act, it's a perfect opportunity to be able to have these resources available to them. And so employment and seeking employment, or maybe someone is in the process of changing jobs, it's a perfect time to be able to bring this information front and center and to assist people to be able to do some things differently if they need to, or just maybe to be learning about it for the first time, particularly if it's somebody who has been unemployed for a long time and they are just now getting into the workforce and they need to learn to deal with whatever debt might exist, or how to deal with a credit score that might not be what they would like it to be. So again, a perfect time to be able to find people who can really benefit from this information. We're also working together to advance financial capability by sharing resources and leveraging partnerships inside and outside the workforce investment system. One of the great things about the American Job Centers is that they are natural points of linkage with community resources. They're mandated, really, the public workforce system to have multiple different partners that all come together in the AJCs. So again, a perfect place as job seekers come to the AJCs to not only have this information available, but to help provide links to other resources and entities at a state or local level that might provide additional information on EITC or on financial education training, or whatever the area might be, that the AJC is a perfect spot to bring those resources together. And then finally, within the workforce investment system, to really share and implement some of the best practices within the system so that people will have really the plethora of resources available to them, both through linkages and through what is offered through the system itself, and thus be able to really access the supports that they need to turn their economic situation around if that's what they need to do, and certainly to advance economically through their employment and through an increased understanding of all of these strategies that are so important to all of us, as Cliff and Desmond have said. So we're really excited about this partnership. We're in the process of really developing this multi-part work plan for ourselves of how we're going to accomplish this really important agenda. And I know on behalf of ODEP and our Assistant Secretary, Kathy Martinez, who's been very personally interested in this area for many, many years, we're just really excited about the future. Elizabeth?
Thank you so much, Chris. So we are now at the point in time where we are available to answer questions. If you haven't had a chance yet to put your questions in the Q&A or the chat box, I'd like to encourage you to do so now. I'd also like to just step back for a moment and say thank you again to Cliff and Desmond. That was a really exceptional presentation, and I think helped all of us on the line to have a better understanding of the CFPB and the efforts that you're undertaking. And it's very exciting to hear of the partnership between CFPB and ODEP. When you looked at your slides on credit, many of us who are disability service providers are often looking at goals around employment, independent living, access, community participation, and it's eye-opening to see how something that's not always thought about in relation to individuals with disabilities, but how your credit could become not just a negative impact on some of those goals, but a real barrier to achieving those goals that you have in mind. So we do have some questions that have come in. The first one is, do you have training material available adjusted for the needs of people with intellectual disabilities?
This is something that we are wrestling with at the Bureau, and we are in the process of creating materials that can meet the different needs of different populations. If there is a specific population segment that you'd like us to respond to, we might be able to do that in an email or something like that. But I think that we are trying to make sure that all of the materials that we put up on our website and materials that we publish are done in different mediums that different population segments can take advantage of it.
Yeah. I would mention as well that we have the Office of Older Americans here, and as I think you know, and I'm certainly in the category of older Americans, past Social Security age, I'll tell you that. But you know that older Americans disproportionately have people with disabilities represented in their ranks, and are especially vulnerable to various scams and so forth, and do experience some of the cognitive issues that others do as well. So we have worked with the FDIC to develop Money Smart for older Americans. And I think that's sort of the first step in developing appropriate materials. But we hear you, and that's something that we should look at in the future, expanding our work.
And if there are recommendations about how we can do this more effectively, you know, these are the types of things that we love to hear from individuals that are in this partnership with us with ODEP. Clearly a space we want to learn and get better at. So, you know, please advise us about how we can do a better job of meeting the needs of the diversity of the population segment that we represent.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, this is Chris. If I could just kind of augment a little bit what Cliff and Desmond had responded to in terms of the intellectual disability question. This is such an important area right now. ODEP happens to be doing a lot of work in this area through our Employment First initiative. And we are working with 30 state teams that are working to align policy and practice to make sure that everyone, people with all disabilities, have the opportunity to participate in integrated competitive employment. And I'm going to make sure that that this area is one that's put on their list as well, in terms of making sure that this topic is raised in those team meetings in those 30 states, and again, another way to get the tentacles out to the nation of information about what can potentially be available through the Bureau.
Before we leave this question, Cliff or Desmond, could you just share with folks on the line what Money Smart is, in case individuals aren't aware?
Sure. Money Smart is a financial education curriculum that was developed by the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. It's very widely used by counseling services, by community organizations, and so forth. It's free. And we recommend that, and collaborating with them is an example of what we're trying to do in terms of maximizing the cooperation among federal agencies to serve the people that we need to serve.
And just for those of you on the line, there are also some great resources directed towards financial education for individuals with developmental or cognitive disabilities that comes out of the state of New York. Their Developmental Disabilities Office had an individual development account program and developed financial education resources for that program. So if you're on the line and you're interested in that prior to CFPB's creation, please feel free to email me, and I'd be happy to share that resource with you. I do want to just step back into this question for one moment. I think that the person who asked was really wondering if your case management training materials were going to have supplemental information for case managers who are working with folks with intellectual disabilities.
I think the answer to that is not yet, but one of the processes we're engaged in is customizing those materials to different audiences. So I can't promise, when we're going to get to it, but we recognize that we do need to customize wherever possible, and that's something that we will put on our agenda.
Great, thank you. Another question is, we can use marketing to help get customers to be more interested in financial empowerment. Are these tools that you're creating?
I'm sorry, I don't quite get the question.
I think they're asking about marketing materials to help customers understand and ask about financial empowerment.
Well, I think that there are a couple ways that we're trying to get the word out. You know, these types of webinars like today and newsletters. One thing that that we didn't mention on the phone is that we are in the process now of drafting a memo that would come out from both Cliff and Assistant Secretary Martinez, really articulating a lot of the issues that we covered today. We are also in the process of developing brochures on the web link with the free materials that we had up. There are tons of information up there that individuals can pull down. Organizations can pull down up to 200 copies of each of those materials and have them for distribution in their centers. So we are creating materials that can be distributed easily. We are also using webinars, blogs, information memos, all these different venues to try and reach large segments of the population, and welcome any other suggestions that folks might have about how we can do that more effectively.
Great, thank you, Desmond. Another question, we have several people writing in asking if they'll be able to get an electronic copy of this presentation. So I just want to let everyone on the line know that yes, that will be made available to you. Nakia, if you could put the link in the chat box, that way folks could copy it and be prepped, but you'll also receive it through our Lead Center email notification once the archive is ready. And thank you all for asking, because I too would if I didn't already have it, I would want this presentation. We have another question from someone who asks, we work with youth who are deaf, and we'd like to explore how we can work together to be prepared or prepare them for getting their first paycheck.
This is an issue that is a minor passion of mine. Right now, we are doing some work around trying to figure out how to build in these services to youth who participate in DOL-funded youth employment programs, both in the summer and around, throughout the year. And I think for this population, we're focusing on three things. One, making sure that there is some level of financial education that these young people receive as part of their employment, and also making sure that they know about how to open up a financial, open up an account with a financial institution, whether it be a bank or a credit union. We are planning to do reminders to these young people as they move through the employment cycle. So if the summer employment, throughout the employment period, they get reminders about how to do those things. We are piloting this effort in a number of smaller communities this summer, and then hopefully from that research and feedback, we will be able to put out some best practices next year about how communities can do this for both youth with disabilities as well as youth who don't have disabilities. I think they face a unique set of challenges navigating the financial service system because many of them are doing it for the first time, and it's particularly challenging for low-income youth who don't have the family support or structure in many cases to navigate the system effectively. So this is a critical body of work for us. And again, if there are ideas about how we can target that information and materials that we're creating for youth with disabilities, we'd really welcome learning from you about what we can do better.
Great, thank you, Desmond. Another question that's come in is, why are employers allowed to pull credit reports?
Well, that's certainly an interesting question. This is not what credit reports were originally developed for, in fact. I don't think there is any federal barrier to them using it, though I will tell you that we have learned that there are increasing numbers of efforts at the federal level, at the state level, that would limit or restrict that. So I think over the next couple of years, you're going to probably see evolution in that direction. So the why of it, you can understand that there are certain positions involving handling of cash or money that a person's personal financial background might indeed be relevant for. There are many other situations in which it's really, it makes you scratch your head. It's really hard to see, why a credit report would be necessary for people doing a wide range of different jobs. So this is an area of that public policy is developed, and certainly a lot of people have pointed to why it can be problematic.
Can I just jump in here and say, the merits of an employer looking at a credit score is something that I think Congress will wrestle with, but there are a lot of other ways that people look at credit reports that can negatively impact consumers with low credit. It's a factor in insurance, it's a factor in automobile purchases, housing, which is a huge thing for many low-income people. So I think while it may, while we may not like it that employers look at it or, may have an opinion about that, helping consumers to improve their credit continues to be a very strong focus for us because it plays such a large role in so many things that people do.
Yeah. And if I could just add, knowing your credit score is one very important basic thing that people can benefit from. Many people we've found through our meetings around the country and some of the research think that their credit score is even worse than it is. They haven't found out about it, but they assume that it's worse, and as a result, they think, oh gosh, this sort of, reputable provider of credit would never give me a loan. I'll have to go to, let's say, a storefront operation, which might charge me a lot more. So it's very important that people get that credit score and then know how to improve it if it's not satisfactory.
Sticking with the theme of credit, we have another question. It's a question and comment that's come in that's noted that some of the people I work with, they are having issues of guardianship because of a fear of what might happen if they get access to credit. Have you looked at this as an issue?
Well, we are concerned, and in terms of our older Americans, some of their work is involved in issues of guardianship or custodianship in terms of how to manage it. Having credit per se is usually not what we hear about people's biggest fear about losing access to services, for example. Very often people are most fearful that if they have savings, they'll be disqualified for various benefits and services. Does anyone else want to chime in on that?
No, but thank you to the person who asked the question. That's an interesting comment for us to explore. Another question we have is also really a comment. This person says, I work in a DEI area. I'm a DRC, and I've had the opportunity to connect with CFPB to help facilitate integration of asset development strategies within the workforce system, especially as it relates to employment and credit report issues.
Well, we thank you for that, and we look forward to working with more of the DEI centers around the country. It's a great foothold into the American Job Center, and we look forward to additional partnerships.
And I would say that interactive opportunities like this are really, really valuable to us. We don't claim to have all the answers or all the tools or all the solutions now, but as we collaborate with ODEP and with the LEAD centers and the DEI sites, we'll get better at it, and we'll try to develop more tools and resources that address your specific needs.
And I just wonder if Chris, if you might want to, oh, I think we lost Chris. So I do just want to take a moment to advise folks that the DEI is the Disability Employment Initiative, and it's a Department of Labor funded project that's now in, I might get the number of states wrong, but about 23 to 26 states, in which there is a focus on ensuring full access and targeted services to individuals with disabilities. That many states have chosen asset development as a key component that they're working on within their American Job Center, and there has been great partnership going on with CFPB really to test some of their strategies within these American Job Centers. Cliff and Desmond, did I get that pretty well? Oh, sorry, Chris. I thought you were off. Thanks.
No, you know, I see they're working on my computer, and somehow I got disconnected there, but I'm following along with my hard copy and on the phone. And I wanted to say that within the DEI, and you gave a wonderful kind of overview of it very quickly, there are 7 strategic service delivery components that the existing grantees have been working on, and one of them is asset development, and it's probably been one of the areas that's been most often selected. Grantees have been very interested in working on this area and developing kind of some model strategies for, you know, what is the role of the AJC and what can they be doing. I also want to mention that ODEP is in the process of clearing a brief report that actually NDI helped us put together that highlights some of the asset development strategies that are being implemented in a number of AJCs across the country. These are not necessarily DEI sites at all, but we hope to have that out on the streets here in the next month or so as just one more educational document to help educate the system really on some things that they could think about replicating in their own area.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris, and sorry about that bit of confusion.
No worries.
Desmond and Cliff, we've had a few people email in asking, how do we get the case manager toolkit that you referenced? Is it free and is it available online?
Okay. The answer to those questions are yes and no. It will certainly be free, but where we are right now is that we are doing the finishing touches on a beta version, which is to say a slightly revised version based on the feedback that we got from more than 24 organizations using it. We expect that by this summer we will have a version on our website that you will be able to download and use. And hopefully you will as well, when you get a chance to look at that, highlight for us what parts of it are most useful, what parts of it we could be building out further or revising, and so forth. So it can really be something that's integral. But please do let us know if you have an interest in it, and we can be sure to begin working with you on that.
Great. How much education is being provided to banks or credit unions to assist with guiding individuals with disabilities?
I don't know that we are engaged in any systematic effort at this point. We generally are not in the business of training the banks and credit unions per se. I do know that I've had the opportunity to go to an international meeting and found that banks and others have self-organized to expand their services to people with disabilities, particularly in England and in Canada. So this is an area that there might be a niche that maybe we can all talk about trying to fill.
I also just want to encourage folks, I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of the questions today, but I want to encourage folks to do 2 things. On Ask CFPB, you can ask additional questions on that link that Cliff mentioned. And also tell your stories, another opportunity for us to hear from the field about emerging issues that are happening out there. If individuals are having challenges with financial institutions, they should go onto the website, Finance.gov, and submit those stories to us so we can get a sense as to what's happening. And also ask questions. By simply asking a question, you will get an official response from the Bureau. But I'm sure if you have a question, others have the same question. So not only will you be getting your answer, you'll be getting that answer for others as well. So those are 2 additional suggestions that I have because we might not get a chance to get through all of the questions today.
Great suggestion. Thank you, Desmond. Also, just revisiting the banks for a moment, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a thank you to Bank of America, who's been very supportive of the work we do here at National Disability Institute to educate disability service providers and asset building providers on integrating services and providing effective services to people with disabilities. And I also would be remiss if I didn't thank the National Federation of Community Development Credit Unions, who has really at this point deep roots into providing services to people with disabilities and creating innovative projects between we at National Disability Institute, other disability service providers, and credit unions. And one more thank you, which would be to the Kessler Foundation, who has helped to fund some of that work. So there are opportunities for you to do some work with your local banks, and if you're interested in exploring those, I'd invite you to email me, Elizabeth Jennings here at NDI, and I'd be happy to share with you a little bit about connecting with your local markets. Okay, we have several more questions. One is CFPB working to educate financial service providers on how to make their products accessible to persons with disabilities?
The answer is no, we are not at this point. We don't issue separate regulations on it, and we do not provide those materials to the banks at this point. I think it's been largely a private sector effort, and I think Elizabeth pointed out some of the community-based and private organizations that are concentrating on that.
Okay, we're now going to shift. We just got in kind of a handful of questions related to employment. One is employers often have minimal knowledge of tax incentives available to individuals available for hiring people with disabilities. These could be a great plus for them financially. Are there partnerships that can be shared? A little bit off the track of our financial conversation, but with you, Chris, on the line, it might be still one that we can address today.
Great. And again, this is not an area that we have been engaged in. We know that there's a lot of work that can and should be done, and we certainly value what NDI has been doing in that area as well.
And I think at this time we actually did lose Chris. So if you want to send in that question to me via email, or if you'd like to shoot me a message that you'd like it answered, please do so, and I'll get you an answer offline. And I think that's all for our questions. If anybody has a final question, you have just a minute or two that you can send it in. I'm very, very grateful to both of you, Cliff and Desmond. I wonder if you have kind of any final words before we wrap up our webinar today.
We're just delighted to have the opportunity to do this with you. Hopefully this won't be the last opportunity. I would also echo Elizabeth's suggestion that you send in questions. I think you've identified some areas that we haven't yet worked in but could, as well as other areas that probably are not ones that are most accessible for us to get engaged in. But we can brainstorm together with ODEP and see how those areas might be addressed.
And I would just say that this work is a growing body of work for us. We are looking to the experts in the field to help us do this work better, and so while we might not have had the answers that you might be looking for in some of these questions today, I think we're striving to be better, and we hope to work with you to get there. So tell us how we can do that, and we will try.
And on that note, we did get in one suggestion, which is a great one. So this person says, perhaps you could develop a series of training videos about financial empowerment, specifically for the deaf and hard of hearing population that is both ASL and captioned.
That's a great suggestion, and we know some of our colleagues have done some video work with the assistance of another federal agency. We would love to be able to explore that.
Would it be possible for the person who's making the suggestion to kind of flesh out the idea a little bit more with you, Elizabeth, and then see how that might work?
Great.
Just so as a follow-up, if they could, help us to think through how the pieces of that might work through the Lead Center, that might be a great effort for us to look further into.
Yeah, we would love to be in partnership with that. So I don't want to, if the person who asked could please email me. Otherwise, I will jot down your name and get you out of the attendance roster and send you an email and see how we can flesh this out and work with CFPB on it.
All right.
And look at that, folks. It's that easy. So send in your suggestions. Let CFPB know what you're thinking. We also are excited to hear from you and talk through some of the training and technical assistance needs you might have. We're hoping that we're addressing some of those in our Lead Center free webinar series. As you know, we provide a new webinar on the last Wednesday of each month from 3 p.m. to 4:30 Eastern. We do this through 3 mini-series. This first one has been on economic advancement. Our next one, which starts in April, is on leadership. And our third one, which will start in July, will be on employment. If you missed our first webinar, you can go back to our Lead Center and click on webinars for the archives. We hope that you'll join us next month for our last in the series on economic advancement. It will be on maintaining employment through economic advancement strategies. We're going to provide information on strategies for enhancing employment stability and improving time on the job through the use of economic advancement strategies. You will learn how to integrate these strategies into your return to work services and hear stories about on-the-ground implementation. So we hope you'll be able to join us. It's going to be led by somebody who has worked with vocational rehabilitation and American Job Centers to help integrate these strategies within their return to work services. And we're hoping to have some really great information for you and some real life stories on how folks are making this happen. I just want to give a thank you again to Desmond and Cliff. It was really such a pleasure to have you on our webinar today. Your wealth of information and your strategies moving forward are so beneficial to us and the people that we serve.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth.
So thank you again. Yes.
Hi, it's Mike Morris, and I just wanted certainly express my appreciation as well to the Bureau and particularly to the work that Cliff and Desmond and others in your office are doing. But I also sort of wanted to extend sort of a closing open invitation to the many people who have joined us from across the country. The LEAD Center, which is funded by ODEP, Office of Disability and Employment Policy, is going to be working in this area of financial empowerment. And we are going to be working with independent living centers who are going to continue to bridge their relationships with American Job Centers and look at not just employment services, but blending and braiding in building financial capability for job seekers with disabilities. We also are going to be working with some mayor's offices around the country. Right now there's some work beginning in Los Angeles and also in Louisville, Kentucky through a network that's called Cities for Financial Empowerment, which is based in New York City but stretches across the country. So again, whether you're connected to an independent living center or are an employment network or you're an American Job Center or however you touch potentially people with disabilities, you could be an employer, you could be an agency that's providing loans regarding assistive technology. We'd love to hear from you because I think the LEAD Center, certainly over the next 3.5 years, working with ODEP and the Bureau, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a lot of opportunities to innovate, a lot of opportunities to sort of continue to build these pathways that really should stimulate all of our thinking and ultimately both change policy and practice across the country.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you again to all of you on the line. For more information about that or to ask questions from today's webinar or just to share with us some of the thoughts you have about future webinars, please feel free again to email me, Elizabeth Jennings, at ejennings@ndi-inc.org. Another thank you to all of our presenters, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. Have a great day, and we hope to see you again next month.